Let's create some close combat sound design. The challenge of creating sound design isn't always about how to create the sound effect itself. In today's digital age, we sound designers often have access to all sound effects we need. The challenge is instead about how to use them. Close combat is in particular challenging to design because it's often fast-paced and chaotic. In a context like this, it doesn't matter if we have all sounds in the world if we don't know how to use them. In this video, I share my best tips on how to approach sound design for close combat and how to make the process easier for you. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty of the sound design, let me start by giving you a free tool. In the description below, you will find a link to a free guide of storytelling with sound. This 9-step guide will take you through the most important things to think about if you want to take your sound design to the next level and not only sound super cool, but also actually tell the story of the piece that you're working on. So go ahead and download that, and then let's dive into some close combat sound design. The first thing I do when I approach a scene is to figure out how sound design best can contribute to the story of it. I make this distinction based on a simple concept. If there are intense visuals, I try to guide the audience through the clip, but if there are sparse visuals, I take the chance to tell the story of the clip. Close combats are 9 times out of 10 super intense, so my role is then to guide the audience through it. I do this mainly by focusing on the rhythm of the fight.
Wait. What?
Yeah, I totally agree. Expressions like that really do need an explanation, don't they? A fight scene is built out of many small sequences of hits. Each sequence finishes with a larger one that either hurts or knocks down one of the fighters. The hits in these sequences of a scene together build the rhythm of the fight. So let's dive into this and take a look at how you can use this information to actually sound design a close combat scene. I have a short fight scene here that we will work with, and the process from now on is divided into 4 different steps. In this first step, we will find the different sequences in the scene and add a short percussive placeholder to the start and the end of them. So I have a placeholder here, just a short woodblock percussive snappy one, perfect for this purpose. So what I do is then I just start to scrub through the content. So we have the jump here, and then we have the flip over here, and then he meets the first opponent over here, and there is the first hit. So we mark that with the placeholder, and then we have another hit here, but the fight continues. And there we have another big one, so we mark that with a placeholder. So we have the start when we dodge that hit, and then we have the final hit of that sequence there. So in between those two there will be one sequence. So let's continue through. After that we turn around and we meet a new opponent, mark the first hit there, we block that, and then we have one hit there, and then we have another thing there, and then the chaos continues and we fight that opponent there, but it's still the same sequence, and there we stab that one, and that's the final one. So let's just have a marker for this first one here, and then when we stab the last one there, in between here we will take care of in the next step. So here in the second step we scrub through the visuals one more time, and we just add all the smaller hits inside each sequence between the start and the ending of the big key moments. So let's do that. We use the same percussive placeholder, nothing crazy at all. We just scrub through it. We have the first dodge there. And then something happens over here, someone like attacking us from the side, so we add a placeholder for that. And then we have that attack there that we block, so we add a placeholder for that. And then we have our final hit there when we take down that opponent. So we have this sequence now. It looks like this. Bam. bam, bam, and it sounds like this. So don't overthink it, just add a placeholder where you think there is something that you need to cover. So let's go over to the next sequence. Not much going on here, but then we meet the next opponent here. So we have the first hit there. And continuing this sequence, we have a big hit there. So we add a placeholder for that. And then another one here when we hit that opponent. And then we have some chaotic movement going on here. So we add a placeholder where we think we need to cover something there. And then we have the final one there. So the second sequence sounds like this. So that's it for step 2. Let's head over to step 3 now. So now we have all the big and small hits marked. In order to guide the audience through this chaos of hits and bodies falling everywhere, we will make these two sequences rhythmical and have a natural groove to them. We will do this by tweaking the placement of the second, the third, and possibly the fourth and the fifth placeholder too, if we have that many. So basically, we keep the placement of the first and especially the last placeholder of each sequence with the picture. Those are the ones that the audience will notice the most if they are out of sync, because they start and end each sequence. But the ones in between, we can adjust them without them feeling out of sync, but instead more natural. This is very much the same approach as when you play really fast musical phrases together in a band, like woodwinds in a big band, for example. As long as you hit the first and the final note, you don't need to be 100% in sync with all the notes in between. It's the first and the final notes that are the most noticeable. It's also in this step possible to add small hits in between the other ones just to round off the design if we feel that they feel natural together with the visuals. So what I did here is just to change the placement a tiny bit of the second and the third placeholder in this first sequence, and then just move these a little bit, and then I added some more, just as I said, to round it off a little bit. So if we focus in on the first sequence here first, it sounded like this, and with the small adjustments it sounds like this. Ba 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 ba. First, it doesn't have any like groove to it, but with this one has much more of a groove and a natural feeling, and that just makes it more easy to understand when the sequence starts, what's going on in between, and when it ends. So the second sequence here, I added a placeholder here. It's just he dodges someone there. We don't actually see what happens there, but something happens and we have a long gap of nothing going on. So I added that, and together with the other ones it sounded really natural. So to round off the design, I decided to add in one more hit in between here. So this way we ramp up the intensity of the fight. So we have longer silence in between the first hits here, and then we ramp it up. So basically we ramp up the tension and then we release it. So before step 3, this sounded like this. So it's just placed together with the visuals, but it doesn't have any natural groove to it. So now it sounds like this. Ba 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 ba. And we still hit our big moments, and then we just have that groove in between them. So that's basically it for step 3. Let's continue to step 4. In this last step, we replace the placeholders with design sounds that fit the visuals. We still need to have the sequences in mind when we do this, so make the last hit of each sequence bigger than the ones before. And that's kind of logical, since the hits inside each sequence usually are blocked or missed hits. That's why the sequence didn't end there but continued. The final ones, on the other hand, are damaging hits that will be longer and more impactful. The final result of the fight sounds and the swoosh and whoosh sounds is this. So it's based on the same rhythm. But it's not that obvious that we have that rhythm when we have the fight sounds together with swooshes, and they like help each other to make this sound even more natural. And as you see here, we have some of the placeholders that just are sounds from the swoosh stem. And it doesn't have any hit because we dodge some hits and stuff like that. So if we just listen to the fight sounds, it sounds like this. And just the whoosh sounds. And together with some ambiances and some vocals, the final result of this is this. Alright, let's recap what we have learned in 4 steps. Step 1. Use the concept intense visuals equals guiding of the audience and sparse visuals equals storytelling. Use this concept to determine what role your sound design will have in the scene. In a fight scene like the one we have worked on in this video, you will have to simplify and guide the audience, but in a more sparse, slow-mo video, you will probably have to go in and do tons of cool storytelling instead. Step 2. Use a short percussive placeholder to sketch out the rhythm and make it feel natural. Step 3. Tweak the placement of the placeholder inside the sequence and each of the sequences to make it feel more rhythmical and natural. And step 4, replace the placeholders throughout the scene with designed sounds and make sure that each sequence leads up to the final moment of it. Using this, you will have a sound design that guides the audience, feel natural and adds value to the story. Speaking of story, if you haven't already, go ahead and download the free 9-step guide to storytelling with sound. The link is down in the description, it's totally free. Alright, that's it for this video. I hope you found it valuable. Have a great day and I see you in the next one.